Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode one of our Met Sim. This is probably going to be about a 3 to 5 year sim. We're just going to run through the Mets competitive window. We're going to see what we can do in a similar time frame to what real life owner Steve Cohen wanted to do, just to kind of get back into out of the park baseball. I didn't really play a whole lot of Out of the Park 23. Um, I played enough, but not as long or as in depth of Sims as I usually do. So we're just going to use this. We're going to get back into it with my favorite team, and we're going to try and win a World Series. Um, so first, let's run through who we expect to have here. I already set up all these filters and these views for things that I like. Um, Feel free to pause and screenshot for what you guys might want to do. But first, let's run through the team, the active pitching staff. Um, Scherzer, year two of his big 3 year, $130 million, 40, I forget what the exact number was. Him and Verlander are going to be our top two aces atop the rotation. They are old, but their injury proneness is not anything ridiculous. So I feel like age just might be the main issue for them and staying healthy, just because that's kind of how the game goes. The older pitchers tend to get hurt more just because they're on the older side. Really interesting is Kodai Senga. These ratings are going to change. We haven't gone through staff and scouting and things like that. But real life, he just had his first start of the year, and he kind of went through what you heard about him. You know, that first inning was that wild lack of control um, kind of inning where he just loses the plate and then he settled in and it was lights out from there. So as a three starter, that's pretty good when these are your 1-2. Carlos Carrasco, perfectly serviceable, right? These ratings are not anything crazy. He will do the job and he's on a reasonable contract, especially at 1 year. Uh, Fifth starter to start the season was David Peterson, and these ratings, they look fantastic. So as long as we can kind of limit the higher leverage in that third time through the order, I think we should be okay with him. The bullpen is a mess. um, a mess. Obviously, we all know Edwin Diaz just got hurt out for the year, but Out of the Park doesn't seem to value the existing relievers all that much, just ratings wise. Dave Robertson looks great, right? Like this cutter, this knuckle curve, this stuff is phenomenal, and he'll be fine, right? He should be. This 45 again doesn't mean a whole lot, but um, we'll get our money's worth out of David Robertson. Brooks Raley, Ottavino, who had a fantastic real life season last year, just absolutely incredible. Um, I feel like some of these numbers didn't update. I didn't do that view, but you get the gist. 2.06 ERA in 65 innings. He cut his walk rate. His home run rate was about the same. Cut his whip. Everything pretty much went down. Oh yeah, homer per nine is a point 0.1, which didn't really hurt him too much, but his walk per nine from the last 3 years was slashed to 2.2, 5.4, 4.4, 5.1 to 2.2, and that helps with the drop in K rate from his 19 and 20 years in New York. The BABIP was nothing um, ridiculously low, and he put it all together for a really fantastic year. And we got some other intriguing arms down here. Drew Smith, in real life, you hope he can finally put it together this year. He was having a decent year last year, and I think he got hurt and then had to come back, or maybe that was the year before. Dennis Santana, the movement's nice, the control's not. This changeup is really nothing, but we like the ground ball pitcher, especially with that movement. Jeff Brigham, hurt in real life, I think. The stuff is good, but extreme fly ball should be okay. But the stuff, the lack of control and the lack of movement might hurt him in the end, even if his stuff is fine. Steven Nagosic, in real life, he has been kind of a steady workhorse. Just coming up when he needs to come up, going down when he needs to go down, and doing a serviceable job. Yeah, that 2021 3 innings in Major League Baseball, 3 hits, 2 earned, 2 bombs. That's not a big enough sample size to really take anything from it. Tommy Hunter, totally average in every respect according to ratings. His stats have been real good. If you look at his actual major league numbers, he was pretty good last year. And another one of those guys who comes up, does what they need to do, and then goes back down. So I'm kind of glad he got the opening day roster nod in real life this year. Joey Lucchesi, interesting profile for a reliever, especially for a lefty. But he was hurt. He had Tommy John, and who knows what he's actually going to be. And Dylan Bundy actually isn't on the major league roster right now. He was a non-roster or a minor league signing. Got hit hard in real life last year. The last few years actually. This is only 65 innings, so it's kind of tough to take a real sample size off that. But his walk rate dropped, but his strikeout per nine dropped, so his BABIP went up. And I guess WAR was positive, so it might be a little bit misleading last year. But either way, I guess he's just depth now. So that's the pitching staff that we're looking for. We're going into the year with, I should say. Catchers, Omar Narvaez. I'm not a huge fan of his profile in game, especially on that contract. The Mets signed him to a 2-year, $15 million deal with a player option next year, which was kind of questionable in real life given how good of a season Tomas Nido had and the fact that Francisco Alvarez is waiting in the wings, but I guess it's a good stopgap just in case. Nido is an awful offensive catcher, but a fantastic defensive one. And, he's been part-time his whole career, where he hasn't really gotten the lion's share of any kind of playing time. But he put up 300 plate appearances, 280 at-bats last year, and was, that's an awful, awful OPS plus. But he was still positive, which speaks to how good his defense is. And at a super, super reasonable rate, that's not going to kill your budget. So that's it for the catchers. Obviously, when we'll go down the whole 40-man, we'll talk about Alvarez and all the other prospects and AAA pitching depth and batting depth and the injured list. But the Major League roster right now stands to look like this. Obviously, Mr. Pete Alonso. I think it's interesting that they still give him some room to grow in his home run power after putting up 53, 16 bombs in the short season, 37, 40. He still can hit more. I think that's true in real life as well, but it's just, this man's putting up 40 every year. How many more is he really going to hit? Of course, I say that, and then he'll go out and have like a 50 piece, which is possible. I've seen, I ran through like one season of like a Colorado sim just to, see all the new features were. And I think he put up 49 that year. So I think we expect him to hit somewhere between, 37 on the low end and 53 on the high. So I think he'll fall between that every year, assuming health. Darren Ruff will be traded. He was DFA'd in real life. We're going to try and get his money off in the trade. I don't think they did anything with him yet. I don't know if he got cut, if he was traded. I don't remember if I even saw that happen. So we're going to try and trade, get his money off the books, try and get some salary relief. Vogelback is really cool. This was supposed to be the two players who were one DH, and you can see their profiles are fairly similar. He doesn't make contact, he doesn't hit doubles, he does strike out, but he gets on base and he hits bombs, which is kind of what those like mid 2010 Mets teams were all about, is bombs, right? And trying to get on base. But the shift in philosophy the last couple of years has been a little bit more contact oriented to try to help with those same issues. But I think it's funny that he has that exact profile that those teams had, and that's what they were trying to get away from. Infield is a little bit of a mixed bag, or middle infield, I should say, and third. Um, Mixed bag here. Guillorme, we love his defensive profile. We love his contact and avoid Ks. He's gonna get on base. He's not gonna hit bombs. He's not gonna hit doubles. But with these ratings, I wouldn't be surprised to see a high 2, low 3 batting average, right? Which doesn't mean a whole lot, but batting average in this game also is somewhat indicative of what we expect on base to see. So with this batting profile and this defense, I expect him to play a lot. Jeff McNeil, similar offensive profile, similar, I won't say as good, but similar defensive versatility at least, where you can plug and play him everywhere. And this on base, this contact, this hitting ability is just going to be so good for them. Just as a change of pace from the Pete Alonso, the masher, right? And this contract he signed right before the season is perfectly serviceable, right? He might tail off right on this end of his mid 30s, but that team option helps, right? And yeah, it might be a little bit more expensive, but for a guy that has just such a special hit tool, I think that might be worth it. But we'll see. That actually, let's go back there. This actually is pretty much exactly the window we're looking at, right? Like 5 is probably the maximum we'll look at for these Mets teams, and then 3 at age 33 for Jeff. So pretty much we're playing out Jeff McNeil's contract. Eduardo Escobar, phenomenal in real life person. He seems like that kind of glue guy. And if you remember a few years back, the offseason he was signed, that was the year the team wanted to really change the culture. So they prioritized bringing in, high quality veterans. Escobar was brought in, and some of the players that the Mets didn't necessarily want to hang on to. They thought that they were a little bit more of an issue than their teams were worth. They kind of let them go. And, whether they were right or wrong, the Escobar signing is kind of, I won't say it was great, but it was certainly defensible at the time, right? He was pretty much a second baseman, utility infield type, at least in Arizona, right? And then Milwaukee. So his Arizona career, he played second and third, so mostly third in Arizona. Actually, in 2020 was a good chunk of third. 21 with Milwaukee was a good chunk of first, second, third. It was sort of split everywhere. He played 2 innings at short. That's kind of cool. And then he's been almost exclusively a third baseman in New York. But he's probably someone, like, I'm not super married to keeping. In the game, probably wouldn't be, his personality class for the game should be, leader, captain, something like that. That's everything you hear about Eduardo Escobar, not necessarily the prankster. So, not someone I'm necessarily itching to keep, especially if I can get off his money. And we know kind of how this game has been working so far, where your expensive players are a little bit undervalued, and you'll be able to get some prospects for them. Like I think I saw somebody did, like you can get Eduardo Rodriguez, and the Tigers they don't want his money on the books, and they'll just throw in one of their top prospects like Torque or Riley Green or something like that. So I don't think we're going to do anything really like that. But within the confines of the game, we'll go through settings as well. But within the confines of the game, we're going to try and keep it realistic, and we're not going to try and do too much, at least until the trade deadline. We're going to move rough, obviously, and we might do some other money things of little consequence. But we'll figure that out when we get there. But I like to keep that first 6 months or first half of the season. I like to keep that as realistic as I possibly can. So finally, infield captain, Francisco Lindor. I feel like his batting ratings have always kind of been low. Last year, obviously, they were low coming off of this 2021 year where he didn't really do a whole lot with the bat, but it was really good last year. 270, 339, 449, an OPS of almost 8, OPS plus of 121. He hit 26 bombs, and, these are the simple counting stats, but he was good last year. He was really good, and we want to. Um, I wish that his batting ratings were a little bit better, but with this defensive profile, he will be playing in our middle infield for a very long time. Um, he's got 9 years left on this deal, 9 seasons, so he'll be a Mets mainstay. I don't anticipate that changing anytime soon. Outfield, Mark Canha. Good eye. I think this was higher last year than it was this year, and these batting ratings were a little bit better, but totally serviceable. He's got one team option after this year, so also an almost expiring deal, but he gets on base a lot, and that helps, in that middle part of the lineup where you can just kind of move the line, right? Tommy Pham was questionable for me, that signing so late in the offseason. It kind of took, uh, I mean, I would rather not have Starling Marte or Mark Canha in center, right? You just give up so much in defense, but you could have rolled with it for Nimmo's days off and not had Pham and maybe carried one of the young guys, right? That would be a perfectly defensible solution. Um, but they signed Tommy Pham to a deal that was probably the highest offer he got, at $6 million a year, and now they have him, right? And the idea was also to, if Darren Ruff didn't work out, they could work him into the DH spot, which they're doing in real life. They're actually doing that, so far, and taking Nimmo's days off in center and playing a good bit. But I feel like you could have gotten his production for a little bit cheaper, without needing to sign him. Tim LeCastro is a really cool player. I think it was Foolish Baseball that made, a video on his sprint speed. Could have been Jolly Olive, but I think it was Foolish Baseball. His just absolute blazing speed, which is not really reflected here, but the stealing is the base running. He's like a throwback kind of player where, that speed is his main tool, and he's valued for it, right? Um, Perfectly fine in the corners. Actually, pretty good in the corners. Perfectly fine in center. Can throw him at second if you really need to. These batting ratings would lend pretty well to second, maybe even first. He'd probably be a Gold Glover at first. He'd be a Gold Glover in left too, but first for sure. And in right, Starling Marte, who was hurt a lot last year, right? He only played 118 games. But that's what happens when you sign, mid-30s outfielders to long deals. They kind of get hurt. So kind of protecting him in real life and protecting his legs is going to be a big deal. Um, so so we expect that to pretty much be the core of this team. Injured list. Injured list. Hernandez probably won't be playing a lot for us. He's a depth piece at best. Quintana is out for 3 months, which puts us right about March, and he should help, right? He's got a perfectly affordable contract, perfectly good for that mid rotation starter. He's a ground ball pitcher. His stamina is good, and he had a great year last year for Pittsburgh and for St. Louis. He was really really good. So if he can even get close to that, then I think it's found money. Coonrod, in real life, was pitching well in spring training and was in consideration for one of those last bullpen jobs. But then he got hurt, and he's out for a while. He's probably not gonna pitch a whole lot for us, but we'll see. Depth is never a bad thing. The one crusher is Edwin Diaz, who's out for 7 months. That puts us right at the middle of October. So maybe he's back for a playoff run. But with, 105 stuff and a 90 grade slider, like this hurts. So we'll see. I kind of want to find a way to maybe replicate his production in here somewhere. Maybe a trade as well. Just that 1 year kind of stopgap. You need that electric arm in the back of your bullpen. Go get your Edwin Diaz replacement. Bryce Montez de Oca, really cool stuff. Not stuff. Ratings. Really cool. Really exciting. That control might hurt, but really interesting player. And 6 to 7 month or a week recovery time might also hurt. It hasn't updated. He is out. I feel like he had some variation of Tommy John surgery, elbow surgery for sure. So I think he's out for the year. But here we're at 6 to 7 weeks. Ridings, depth, interesting stuff, but probably depth. We'll see how much he contributes. Danny Mendick is not out for a month. He was playing all of spring training. His ACL, as far as we know, is fine right now, but also money I'll probably try and move just because I don't know how much this is really going to help me over somebody I'd rather play. And then Nimmo was out for 2 weeks, which puts him right at the end of March for opening day, and I think he misses opening day, so I might go into commissioner mode and adjust that because he missed like 4 days in real life and then he was fine. So I think I might adjust that just to get him on the opening day roster. I don't, he's perfectly fine in real life. There's no need for that knee to really pop up. Really sad is Matt Allen, who came in. He was drafted in the 3rd round of 2019, and he's just been hurt, just always hurt. The only one that really reflects here is the torn UCL for Tommy John, but always hurt, and like he had a real bright future, and he was finally coming into his own. And then he got hurt again. So we'll see how much value he actually has. He's still got room to grow, but with all these injuries and not pitching, and hasn't pitched since 2019 in low A, we'll see what we actually get. And who knows? Maybe somebody wants to give me a real player for him. And then these guys are just minor league injuries. We don't really have to run through all of them. And that's a pretty good segue to the minors, right? The AAA, there's not a whole lot really to go through here. John Curtis is probably going to pitch for us at some point. Jose Buto is a real life Mets prospect. He got lit up last year, but it was a kind of wear it game where he had to take it. He had to get wrecked a little bit like that. He was the emergency starter in Philly, I think, and he just got lit up, which is fine, right? But I think he still can pitch for us. I think he can still have a good career. And then Tyler McGill. The game does not like him as a starter, but they do like him as a reliever, right? He's at 50. And again, ratings are not everything, especially, the way scouts rate players. But, we'll see where he lands for our team, I should say. Not a whole lot really to go through with these guys. Pretty much just depth. Denny Reyes came up for the Mets and pitched yesterday, I think. How'd they get him? Minor league free agent. Cool. Yeah, he's probably not going to pitch a whole lot for us either. The AAA Syracuse lineup could contend with the Oakland A's real life lineup, right? They're pretty good. The players we really want to pay attention to, right? Obviously, top prospect Francisco Alvarez. Something that I did last year was Alvarez is just kind of move him around the diamond just to get some playing time and plate appearances, because this bat is good, and this bat is at least as good as some of the players that are up on the major league team now. So if you can live with the 40 catcher ability and some growing pains in other defensive positions and at the DH, then I think he's worth carrying on the major league roster and trying to develop at the same time. Brett Beatty is the other top prospect who they have at first right now. the game doesn't like his defensive ratings. They don't really like how he plays third base. But if you saw him in spring training, his defensive profile was much better this year, and that's kind of probably why they put him at first, because I don't view him as a third baseman. But I think we can also probably stick him in left and be fine. So again, that kind of you can play him around the diamond in the game, stick him at first, give him a day at third, put him in left, put him at DH, and maybe not this year, but maybe next. But maybe this year. Like that's a perfectly serviceable player right now, and he kind of tore up the minors last year. Ronnie Mauricio, I do the same exact thing every year. I have Ronnie play every single position, and he's the super utility backup, which is something I think they should consider in real life. Have him take a day in every single defensive position, and then you can get a pretty decent offensive player every single day, and everybody gets their day off. Ratings wise, he turns into an elite corner outfielder and an elite first baseman, and a pretty good second baseman too. I think he's fine in center. I think he's 40 shortstop, which is your one day a week. If there's no Luis Guillorme, then I think you're okay. And then the other top prospect, Mark Vientos, who has even less of a defensive profile, I think, than Beatty. But he's got a just as good, if not a better bat right now. So a good DH option, a good first base option, a good corner outfield option. So we have plenty of options for these guys, and plenty of different versatility. So I'm kind of gonna predict that they're gonna contribute, maybe not this year, but maybe next. And if they do contribute this year, it's gonna be on a limited basis. And I assume that's kind of what the real life team is thinking too, like limited basis. These guys are probably not going to play a whole lot for them. DJ Stewart had a great spring training, so he's an option. Like if he gets hot and I have a corner outfield injury, bring him up. I'm not super opposed to that. But other than that, this AAA team is not going to yield too much fruit for us this year that I can imagine. AA, I think, is probably pretty much of the same thing. William Lugo, I've actually heard, but that's an interesting potential. This is a lot of room to grow, and that's a good first base defender. What did he do last year? So he started in low A, came up to high A, right? Decent slash line, decent, pretty good on base actually. Stayed the same at double A, or high A rather. Interesting. Somebody to keep our eye on. We'll go through and we'll do specific short lists for prospects and keep updated on things like that. We'll do that probably off screen. Kevin Parada, real life, really cool prospect, really cool bat tool, and I think he's going to be really good coming up. And this versatility, right? There's not one position you can't play him at in the field. So we're probably going to do something similar to Ronnie Mauricio, except he's also a catcher. We're going to give him time at first. We're going to give him time in the corner outfielders. We'll probably give him time, or corner outfield. We'll probably give him some time at third, give him some time at second. Short and center are probably not realistic options, but with this defensive versatility, guys like that can always help. That's pretty much it for AA hitters. Just based on guys I know. Grant Hartwig has been rising fast. He's been rising pretty fast. He made it up to AA last year. AAA, sorry. He was really good in AA. He was untouchable in high A, right? Really good in AA, and then pitched 3 innings in AAA at the end of the year. He's somebody that I could see kind of come up at some point too. Dominic Hamill, real life prospect. Blade Tidwell, top 100 now, actually, in the game, not in real life. He's number 100 exactly. Interesting stuff. potential reliever, which is kind of unfortunate. Um, but good starting pitching prospect. And Calvin Ziegler, real life. The stuff is good. I don't think he's a starter. Um, they had him starting, but I don't think he's a starter. I think he's a reliever. I think everything plays up in the bullpen to the point where it's worth it more to have him in the bullpen. Orze is also pretty good in Double A. We went through the offense already. We're not going to go through the whole minor leagues. That would be unnecessary. But I do want to hit staff. There's just a couple changes we always hit. That's me. That's Gordon. Gordon was named after my NBA 2K14 star shooting guard. He was a lefty. He was the first player in NBA history to average 57 a game or some crazy stat line like that. Billy Epler signed through 2027. Like, a lot of these guys are here through, at least the next year or 25, and most of the major league staff is here for a while. What I like to do with my assistant GM is find like old retired players. Carlos Beltran is a favorite of mine, and sign them to that assistant GM and hope that they go get a deal somewhere else and keep those retired players or that staff that I like a lot. They keep them in the game. Buck, great. Not going to touch with Buck. Eric Chavez, Jeremy Hefner, Jeremy Barnes. Jeremy Barnes is not that great. He's probably not somebody I'm going to keep. The base coaches are fine, right? Wayne Kirby, Joey Core's fine. Team trainer always gets fired, unfortunately. That's just the nature of the game. If you know about Rick Jameson, you know. And unfortunately, Drew Toussaint, your scouting ratings are pretty good, but you gotta go. That favorability does us no favors. So we're gonna go do that. We're gonna go to staff search. Go here, scout ratings. Scout amateurs. I'm gonna go highly favor tools. Opportunity scouting director. We're looking for RJ Harrison and Michael Hill. These guys are always two of the best, first year scouts you can get. It's really, pick your flavor. They're both pretty good. If you want to search for a newer, better scouting director, RJ Harrison usually retires within a few years. But if you want a little bit more stability, Michael Hill is pretty good at what he does, and he stays for a little bit longer. So let's see. I think we'll go Michael Hill this year. We're not going 10 years deep. We're only going 5, and their ratings are pretty much the same. We don't even have to look through ratings. We can just go sort. Rick Jameson, always. If you don't know, let's go find him. Get here effectively. Rick Jameson, incredible trainer. Always somebody you should want. That prevent arm injuries, that legendary, really, really, you can feel it. With the game, what you're getting, and that helps. So that's all right. Jeremy Barnes. Sorry, Jeremy. Just not up to snuff. Just not up. So now we're gonna go here and hitting coach, and we just try and get somebody who's good at hitting, who's got good development, not necessarily need the good development. Oh, Ben Johnson, of course, always has control, right? Yeah, so that's something we do too. I meant to go through this a little bit later, but we'll go through settings towards the end of this video, I think, and we'll walk through what we do here with the settings and what I like and what I like to keep and how that changes the game for me. But that's it for staff, I think. Ben Johnson is an elite hitting coach as well. Usually I try and put him in my minor league somewhere and get some value out of that. Speaking of which, we should check the hitting coach at AAA. Glad I did that. Ben Johnson, I should have just hired at AAA, but it's okay. That's fine. AAA hitting coach. We want someone ideally with decent development. Todd Black seems fine. Fine, yeah, absolutely. Todd Black is actually from a town 15 minutes away from me, maybe 20 minutes away. So Todd Black is fine. I never knew that. Finances. Finances are rough, obviously, when you go through what the Mets are doing and they're just trying to supplement the major league team with high expensive contracts. Obviously, you're going to be a little bit strapped for cash, and the payroll of 308, is not the worst, but if we can save 6 from Tommy Pham, 4.5 from Rayleigh, and 3 from Ruff, that'll help a lot because our scouting budget is nothing, and our player development budget is nothing. And we zero this out to get a little bit more money. This will probably keep. I like to keep that there just because I like having it. Player development, I would love to bump to 20 million, and it kind of stays there. And scouting, I would also love, but it max caps at 16. This I do at 25. I feel like the responsiveness is usually almost always good enough at 25 at everything, and is quick enough, and you can get everyone you kind of need. But we're now 11 million under budget and that's without international amateurs and lower for draft, right? And lower in scouting than I would prefer. So if we can find a way to make that money up, we're gonna do it. So I think that's what I'll be doing. That's what I'll be working on, is finding a way to deal, Pham, Rayleigh, and Ruff, 3 guys on the edges of the roster and Hernandez probably. Like I don't want to pay 1.6 million for Eliezer Hernandez. So we're gonna be looking to move that money. This isn't real life. This isn't Steve Cohen unlimited finances. This is we're short $12 million and we got to find a way to make it up. So I think we're gonna leave it there for today. I'm gonna look for some trades. I'm gonna look to move that money around, and we'll come back when we're ready. So thanks.